On Friday, the 5th of July 2024, the draw for the early rounds of the FA Cup was made, and my FA Cup Road to Wembley challenge became a reality. The way the draw turned out left me with a choice of two fixtures roughly the same distance from home: Kimberley Miners Welfare against Cleethorpes Town, or Hucknall Town v Bottisford Town. With the preliminary round draw already made, I knew that the winner of both of these ties would be playing at home in the next round, and with Bottisford 16 miles closer to home than Cleethorpes, I chose to start my journey at Hucknall Town's RM Stadium on August the 3rd. The road to Wembley began at the RM Stadium on Saturday. I went to watch Hucknall Town against Bottisford Town in the extra preliminary round of the FA Cup, and I wasn't disappointed. I went to Hucknall Town's old ground, Hucknall Road, a few times. I even played there, but the RM Stadium was a new one for me, as they only moved there in December 2022. The staff at the club shop seemed very proud of their new ground. They informed me that Nigel Clough had opened it, and that Brian Clough had opened Hucknall Road back in the 70s, and they should be proud of it. It's a lovely ground with a friendly, welcoming vibe. Everyone I spoke to seemed really positive and excited for the game, despite the club's less than favourable results on the pitch. Hucknall came into this one off the back of a 1-0 loss at Sleaford and a 5-2 home defeat to Belper United in the league, while Bottisford Town lost their league opener 3-0 at Tadcaster Albion. After a good wander around the pitch, I sat myself down amongst the Hucknall supporters in the main stand, with a decent crowd starting to gather. Hucknall Town are in yellow, while Bottisford Town are in green. As the referee gets them underway, the 2024-25 FA Cup Road to Wembley starts right here. The footage I got from this game's very random. Typically nothing seemed to happen while I had my camera out, but the moment I put it away, that's when the game started to liven up. Hucknall Town started livelier, but it only took a couple of minutes for Bottisford to get a hold of the game, and they looked dangerous every time they got hold of the ball. I commented to my wife that Hucknall were very slow in following up the loose ball, and within seconds of that comment, the Hucknall keeper made a decent save, only for the Bottisford attack to react quickest, and it was 1-0 to the visitors after around 6 minutes. The home side didn't let their heads go down. The game had been fairly even and end-to-end until midway through the first half, when the homekeeper misplaced a pass right to the feet of Bottisford's tricky winger with the goal wide open. The keeper then somehow recovered, and his resulting long ball set up Hucknall's equaliser. I've got no idea how he got away with that, and I really wish I caught that on film because it was brilliant. The remainder of the first half was evenly matched, with chances and decent saves at both ends. Around 5 minutes before the end of the first half, the visitors won a corner, which was hit dangerously into the 6-yard box. Hucknall's keeper, who'd probably been man of the match up to this point, didn't get great distance on his punch, and Bottisford once again followed up to take the lead. I think there was a case for obstruction on the keeper during the follow-up, but the referee was having none of it. So at half-time, Hucknall Town 1, Bottisford Town 2. The second half started at a frantic pace, with the home side going all out for the equaliser. And what an equaliser it was. 10 minutes into the second half, a corner played out to the edge of the box found Mason Moore, who curled in a Yamal-esque strike for 2-2. I've borrowed these images from Hucknall Town's website so you get the idea. What a goal that was. The teams were level at 2-2 for a mere 5 minutes when, well, I'll show you. I actually caught this one on film. So that made it 3-2 to the visitors, and an entertaining game with half an hour still to play. From that point on, the game seemed to get a bit scrappy, yet still entertaining. There were chances at both ends, but Bottisford looked to adapt a much more counter-attacking strategy, and Hucknall just couldn't find a way through, despite the number of chances they had at the end. Float this one in.
Oh my god, so fucking close.
Yeah. The game finished Hucknall Town 2, Bottisford Town 3, with an attendance of 269. Yeah. Man of the match for me, despite a couple of shaky clearances, would be Hucknall keeper Alfie Smith-Eccles, who pulled off some decent saves and didn't let his errors get to him. That was a really good cup tie. I definitely got my money's worth. It was very entertaining with two sides going for it. I think the result was fair. Bottisford Town were marginally the better side, certainly more clinical in front of goal. So I'll be adopting them now until they go out. Winterton Rangers beat Shepshire Dynamo 3-0, so I'll be attending Bottisford Town against Winterton Rangers in the preliminary round on August the 17th. So with one game down, I lost my first team. Hucknall Town's loss meant I'd have to adopt Bottisford Town of the Northern Counties East League, and I couldn't have predicted how many contacts and friendships that trip would give me. Winterton Rangers had beaten Shepshire Dynamo 3-0 in their extra preliminary round tie, so I got to witness a huge local derby between Bottisford Town and Winterton Rangers, who had ground shared just a couple of seasons earlier. On Saturday, I made the 1.5 hour trip to Bottisford on the outskirts of Scunthorpe for the FA Cup preliminary round tie between Bottisford Town and Winterton Rangers. I didn't really know what to expect as this was new territory for me, but the Barrett Steel Stadium was easy to find and had plenty of on-site parking. So after a walk around outside, I went through the turnstiles and was greeted by an incredibly upbeat atmosphere. There's a real buzz about this club. I like to get a souvenir when I visit a new ground, so my first point of interest was the club shop. I'd seen that the club have a wide range of options online, but there wasn't a lot of choice on site. But still, I came away with a neat little pin badge, and let's not forget that this club is undergoing a development. There are plans to expand the club shop over the next few months. I was a bit disappointed that the match programmes are online and I was unable to buy a physical copy, but they had that covered too. Just before the game started, I was given a printed team sheet, so I've got something physical to add to my Road to Wembley souvenirs box. After visiting the club shop and having some of their very reasonably priced and much higher than expected quality food, I had a walk around the ground. During my walk around the pitch, I was approached by marketing manager Jason, who invited me to join him in the clubhouse at half-time. I was delighted and a little overwhelmed to discover that Jason had seen my video on their extra preliminary round tie at Hucknall and wanted to give me some more information on the club. I gladly obliged, but before that, there was a first half to watch. Both teams had already won one game to get to this stage. I of course watched Bottisford Town beat Hucknall Town in the last round, while Winterton Rangers won their tie 3-0 away at Shepshire Dynamo. Despite the clubs not having much of a history on the pitch, this was a bit of a rivalry and local derby match. These two sides had ground shared while Bottisford's Birch Park was being redeveloped into the neat little ground they use today. Not to mention Winterton had poached a couple of players during pre-season. You could tell both sides really wanted to win this game. I sat myself down in one of the two main stands as the referee got the next leg of the Road to Wembley underway, and it was Winterton who kicked off. The first half was largely uneventful, but it wasn't boring. It was more a case of two teams cancelling each other out, and it stayed that way until just before half-time, when Bottisford's Luke Aris, who impressed me at Hucknall, dribbled into the box. He lost the ball, but the Winterton defence only cleared as far as the unmarked Aris Cunha, who couldn't miss from a couple of yards out. 1-0 to Bottisford, and it stayed that way until half-time. Go. At half-time, I took a walk over to the clubhouse to meet Jason, who gave me further insight into the club's ambitions and vision for the next few years. Bottisford Town have previously been seen as a small club punching above their weight in this league, but I don't think it'll be long before they outgrow this standard of football. And this year they've made one of their best starts in this league. There's a real belief that the current management and backroom staff can push them up to step 3 of the non-league pyramid, which is one level below the National League North and South. And I believe them. Jason joined from Scunthorpe United recently and has decades of experience doing marketing for much bigger clubs. This is an exceptionally well organised club with staff members who are clearly passionate about their roles. They have teams of all age groups, 30 different teams in total, and various social clubs who use their ground. These facilities are impressive. I love non-league football, so I could have spoken to Jason all day, but as I walked back to the ground, I heard the cheer. Bottisford's Johnny Niantu had doubled their lead within minutes of the restart. I totally missed it, but I heard it came from another mistake by Winterton at the back. From that point on, it was game management for the hosts, and we did start to see some more urgency from the visitors, but they couldn't find a way through. Winterton created a few chances in the second half, but nothing really troubled Graham Anderson in the Bottisford goal. Though 7 minutes from the end, they got their best chance of the game. A lovely through ball sent the Winterton forward clean through with just the keeper to beat, and somehow he put it wide. That would have brought them back into the game. That was by far their best chance of the afternoon, and moments later it was game over. Aris Cunha caught Winterton on the break, ran through and slotted the ball neatly past Ryan Musselwhite in the visiting goal. 3-0 and no chance of a comeback. I thought Winterton Rangers were a much more well-organised team than Hucknall Town in the last round. Bottisford played a lot better this time round though. They'd given Hucknall several chances to get back into the game, while this time round Winterton were given very few. Although 3-0 was a little harsh on the visitors, Bottisford Town are into the first qualifying round for only the third time in their history. It was tough to choose a man of the match. There were several Bottisford players who I could have chosen, but I have to go with Aris Cunha for his 2 goals. The attendance of 236 is the third highest of Bottisford Town's history. Maybe they can improve on that in the next round. I spoke to the chairman, Howard Pirrie, after the game. His aims for this season are to reach the third round of the FA Vase, an achievement they so nearly managed last season but lost on penalties to Ramsbottom United in the second round. And in the FA Cup they're dreaming of a second qualifying round appearance, with Scunthorpe United at home being the dream tie. Howard also wanted me to give a special mention to club stalwart Andy Alcock, who recently received an award for his long service to the club. Massive congratulations to Andy for that. That's a huge achievement. Well, Bottisford Town, you're now one step closer to the second qualifying round and that potential dream tie against Scunthorpe United. The draw for the first qualifying round was made yesterday and it included all of the teams from the 7th tier. And it's a home tie again. Bottisford Town will play the winners of Deeping Rangers and Loughborough Students, who have a replay to play tonight. So it's back to the Barrett Steel Stadium for me on August the 31st, but who will they play? I'm going to make a short update video with the result of that replay over the next couple of days. Although Deeping or Loughborough would have been closer to home, I'm really looking forward to coming back here. Bottisford Town is a lovely, welcoming club with a great atmosphere and a passionate group of people working behind the scenes. The new ground is extremely well kept and the facilities are suitable for a much higher standard of football. If you're a ground hopper or a football fan wanting to support grassroots, I'd strongly recommend a trip to the Barrett Steel Stadium. After the two preliminary rounds, the draws were made on a round-by-round basis, so it was exciting to keep track of where I'd be going next. And with Bottisford Town being drawn at home to Loughborough Students in the first qualifying round, the journey sent me back to the Barrett Steel Stadium. But this trip was special. So far, my FA Cup road to Wembley has been the story of Bottisford Town. They've been involved in every game since I began this series. Their journey began in the extra preliminary round where they beat Hucknall Town 3-2 at the RM Stadium. Then they knocked out local rivals Winterton Rangers in the preliminary round with a dominant 3-0 victory at home. On Saturday, I went back to the Barrett Steel Stadium for the first qualifying round tie between Bottisford Town and Loughborough Students. The Students had beaten Bugbrook St Michael's 2-0 in the extra preliminary round and then Deeping Rangers after a replay in the preliminary round and had to go into this one as favourites, being one league above their hosts. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos, Bottisford Town play in the 9th tier of English football while Loughborough Students are in the 8th. One of these teams would make history as neither had ever made it past the first qualifying round before Saturday. When I arrived, there was a tense, yet still extremely positive atmosphere around the ground. Everyone still seemed upbeat, but I could tell the nerves were getting to a few people. Despite only ever visiting the Barrett Steel once previously, I was made to feel like a regular guest. I ran into club chairman Anthony Reeve before I'd even gone into the ground, and invited into the clubhouse for some food at half-time. As they don't have a club shop on site, I bought myself a Bottisford Town bobble hat from their online store. Unfortunately though, it arrived while I was at the game, so I didn't have a chance to bring it with me. I'd also downloaded their match programme before I made the trip, but I was still given a printed team sheet before the game started. In the 2 games since my last visit, the results on the pitch hadn't been brilliant. A 5-1 home loss to Barnton ended their FA Vars campaign way too early, and they'd suffered their first home league defeat to Handsworth in midweek. So following that up with a home tie against higher graded opposition wasn't ideal, but this is the FA Cup, and anything can happen. I went into the tunnel in an attempt to get a better shot of the players coming out onto the pitch, but I'm not sure I really achieved that goal. So here's a few shots of the backs of the players' heads. It was Bottisford Town who kicked off day 3 of the road to Wembley, and could they make history? Bottisford are in blue, while Loughborough are in purple. From the start it was clear that Loughborough Students were going to be the toughest opponent they'd faced so far. They seemed well organised and extremely composed on the ball. As with the previous 2 rounds, my footage was a bit random, as I wanted to be able to enjoy the game as well as get videos, so I missed a lot of the action. This time though, I was given access to Bottisford Town's footage of the whole game, so I was able to put together a bit of a highlights reel for added context. There were a few shots on goal early in the match, but the first real chance came after about 20 minutes when an Aris Cunha header forced the Loughborough keeper into a fine reaction save, and then Loughborough scrambled the follow-up behind for a corner. Aris Cunha had another chance 10 minutes later when he powered through the visiting defence and hit a low shot which was again brilliantly saved by Callaghan in the Loughborough goal. Right on half-time, a deflected shot almost caught out Graham Anderson to give the visitors the lead, but it rolled narrowly wide of the post. And it was all square at the break. 0-0, but an entertaining game with plenty of chances and two sides clearly wanting to go for it. A proper cup tie. Bottisford were the better team in the first half. Charlie Callahan in the visiting goal had been brilliant, making some important saves to keep his side in it. Loughborough students looked dangerous going forward, but the Bottisford defence was solid in that first half. I'd planned to go to the clubhouse at half-time, but by the time I'd finished faffing with my notes, it was nearly time for the teams to come back out. I missed Johnny Niantu's goal in the last round, so I was determined not to miss any of the action here. Loughborough students started the second half brightly, and just a couple of minutes in, they had a glorious chance to take the lead. The ball fell to Joshua Strouts just a couple of yards out, but he seemed to get it stuck under his feet, then hit an off-balance effort wide of the post. That really should have been 1-0, and a huge let-off for the hosts. Just minutes after surviving that scare, Bottisford were in front. Luke Ayres, who has probably been their best player during this cup run, got the ball around 30 yards out, and despite having purple shirts all around him, breezed past their defence to slot home from the edge of the penalty area. 1-0 to Bottisford, and what a finish that was. As expected, Loughborough saw a lot more of the ball from that point on, but the home defence wasn't having any of it. The back four totally bossed this game. The last 5 minutes or so got a little scrappy with the visitors desperately searching for the equaliser, and it got even more nervy for the hosts when James Playford was given a second yellow card for kicking the ball away, and Bottisford had to survive the last few minutes with 10 men. But they survived. A fantastic defensive display saw Bottisford Town into the second qualifying round for the first time in their history. Full time, Bottisford Town 1, Loughborough Students 0. Bottisford's number 7, Luke Ayres, was celebrating his 100th appearance for the club, so it was fitting that he should get the winner. Luke is now the club's 13th highest goal scorer of all time with 23, and with the majority of the season still to play, I'm sure that number will continue to rise. Well done, Luke, and congratulations on the 100 appearances. Man of the match, as chosen by the club sponsors, was Bottisford Town's number 3, Blake Gregory, but in reality that could have gone to any one of their back four. They were brilliant. I want to give a special mention to Loughborough Students goalkeeper Charlie Callahan though. He made some fantastic saves to keep his side in the game, and he was my man of the match for the visitors. Surprisingly, the attendance of 180 was a little less than in the previous round, but it was still the 7th best attendance in the club's history. Their season average is 127. After the final whistle, I was invited into the changing rooms to meet the players and coaches. They were understandably delighted to take this club on its best ever FA Cup run. I meant to get some videos of the players celebrating, but I got caught up in the moment and totally forgot about it. Maybe I'll be able to get that footage when they get through the next round. After the celebrations, I spoke to first team manager Mike Thompson about the second qualifying round draw and who he'd prefer to play. He was hoping for either a winnable tie at home or one of the big teams from the National League North away. The general feeling amongst the players and staff is that Scunthorpe United, whether home or away, would be the absolute best fixture they could get. And we had to wait a couple of days, but the draw was made yesterday lunchtime, with all the teams from the National League North and South entering at this stage, including my own team, Hereford. But we'll have to wait a little bit longer as it's dependent on another replay, but Bottisford Town will travel to either 8th tier Belper Town or 7th tier Bromsgrove Sporting in the second qualifying round. They played out a 2-2 draw in Derbyshire on Saturday, and no matter who wins that replay, it's going to be a tough test for Bottisford in the next round. But as I mentioned earlier, this is the FA Cup and anything can happen. Before the draw was announced, I saw a stat on the FA website that only 12 teams from the 9th tier are guaranteed to be playing in the second qualifying round, with several others involved in replays this week, which should give you an idea of how difficult it is for a team at Bottisford's level to reach this stage of the competition. so that's a fantastic achievement already. I had another brilliant experience at the Barrett Steel Stadium. Bottisford Town is such a welcoming club with a great bunch of players and staff. Their current record attendance at the new ground is 280, and I'd love to see them better that this season. So if you happen to be in the area, or if you're into ground hopping, go and give them some support. Thanks to Bottisford Town for such a warm welcome again, and for allowing me to use their footage in this video. I'm going to be posting a quick update after Bromsgrove Sporting play Belper Town at the Victoria Ground tonight. It's a trip to either Derbyshire or Worcestershire for me in the next round. Let me know in the comments if you've been to either of those two clubs, and as always, if you're enjoying my content so far, or just like the sound of my definitely not AI voice, please consider subscribing to my channel. After that Luke Ayres wonder goal in the first qualifying round, Bottisford Town found themselves in the second qualifying round for the first time ever, and they were given a tricky tie away to Worcestershire side Bromsgrove Sporting, who play in the Southern League Premier Division Central, 2 leagues higher than them. But with Sporting struggling in the league, could the 9th tier visitors cause an upset? They came agonisingly close to doing so. So far, my Road to Wembley series could easily be known as the story of Bottisford Town, as they've featured in every game I've covered. It started at the RM Stadium in the extra preliminary round, where they beat Hucknall Town 3-2 to set up a home tie at the Barrett Steel Stadium against local rivals Winterton Rangers, where they won convincingly in the preliminary round. The first qualifying round gave them their toughest test yet, a home tie against Loughborough Students, who were 1 league higher. But a solid defensive display and a brilliant solo goal from Luke Ayres was enough to win that game and take Bottisford Town into the second qualifying round for the first time ever. On Saturday I travelled down to Worcestershire to watch the biggest game in the club's history. They took on Bromsgrove Sporting at the Victoria Ground, or the UK Electrical Stadium as it's now known. Sporting play in the Southern League Premier Division Central, which is 1 step below the National League North and South and 2 leagues above Bottisford, so this would be one hell of a test. Bromsgrove needed a replay against Belper Town to get through to this stage. A Ryan Snape goal in extra time proved to be the winner after Belper missed a late penalty. The Victoria Ground wasn't a new one for me. In fact, going back there brought on a wave of nostalgia. I made a few appearances for Bromsgrove Rovers in the early 2000s before they were liquidated, but hadn't been back since Sporting were formed, so I was really excited to go back there. When I contacted the club beforehand, they warned me that on-site parking was limited, but I didn't have any issue parking at the ground, and for £2 it was really cheap. It's a short walk up the main road from the football club car park to the main entrance, but the parking attendant was a very chatty and helpful man who made sure we knew exactly where we were supposed to be going. After we went in through the main turnstile, I picked up a match programme and went into the club shop, which is positioned right next to the main entrance. And it's an impressive club shop, with a lot of good quality items to choose from. I was in there for a while, but eventually decided on this nice little Bromsgrove Sporting hoodie. There's plenty of places to get food and drink at the ground too. There's the Rouslers Bar, which has a good choice of beers and ciders available, as well as the main kiosk behind it, which has a great selection of food. My wife had the pork stuffing and gravy bap, which she wanted me to mention was the best food she's ever had at a football ground, so we might have to come back just for that. Just like with Bottisford and Hucknall, Bromsgrove Sporting have a great bunch of people working at the ground, and there was a really good atmosphere starting to build. The supporters weren't segregated on Saturday, so we were able to wander around and sit wherever we wanted. So for the first half we climbed up the steps into the Thomas Jones stand. The UK Electrical is a proper old school football ground. It had pillars in the way and everything. But overall, it was a great view from the main stand. And out came the two teams, 7th tier Bromsgrove Sporting in their red and white home kit, while 9th tier Bottisford Town are in their green away kit. It was Bromsgrove Sporting who got this FA Cup second qualifying round tie underway. The game started off pretty much as I'd expect it to, with the hosts dominating possession, but due to some solid defending and this great save from Graham Anderson, it stayed 0-0 for most of the first half. It felt like the sort of game where you just knew if Bromsgrove didn't find a way through, then Bottisford would get a chance. And they did. On 30 minutes, it was a glorious chance to take the lead. The Sporting defence lost the ball inside their own half, and Piers Hudson found himself clean through on Charlie Price. But the ball got stuck under his feet, allowing the lightning-fast Axum White to make a crucial challenge. That was a huge let-off for the hosts, but a couple of minutes later, Bottisford had an even bigger chance to take the lead. Sporting goalkeeper Charlie Price brought down Aris Cunha in the penalty area, and the referee pointed to the spot. Cunha took the penalty himself, but it was saved by the Sporting keeper. Just 4 minutes later, Bottisford were punished. Ryan Snape set up Jamie Meadows, who couldn't really miss from just a few yards out, and a sigh of relief went around the ground. Going a goal down after all that would have made it easy for the players' heads to go down, but they didn't. And right on half-time, Bottisford did have the ball in the net, but it was ruled out for offside. Charlie Price had made a fantastic save from a corner, but Cody Collins was in an offside position when he put the ball in the net. And at half-time, it was Bromsgrove Sporting 1, Bottisford Town 0. And that was a first half the visitors should be extremely proud of. They were still in the tie at the halfway point. The game went a little bit flat at the start of the second half. There were a few chances at both ends, but nothing to really trouble either of the goalkeepers until the 76th minute, when Sporting beat the Bottisford offside trap. Graham Anderson, faced with 3 opponents, brought down Harry Crook, and the referee gave a penalty. Blatant. Which Crook scored himself. What is it with Bromsgrove Sporting and penalties this season? At 2-0, with so little time to go, it appeared to be game over, and you could tell that the Bottisford players were starting to get tired. It looked like Sporting might add a few more. They did have the ball in the net. Jamie Meadows' shot came back off the post for Harry Crook to slot home, but he was offside, so the goal didn't stand. Right before the final whistle, James Playford almost caught out Charlie Price with a long-range free kick, but it went just wide. And it finished Bromsgrove Sporting 2, Bottisford Town 0. And how different could that have been if the visitors had taken their chances in the first half?
Final score here at the UK Electrical Stadium. Bromsgrove Sporting 2, Bottisford Town 0. Thank you very much.
The attendance was 575. Man of the match for me was Bromsgrove Sporting's Axum White, who was super composed on the ball, seemed to be everywhere and made that important challenge in the first half to deny Pierce Hudson. That was a decent cup tie. I really enjoyed it, and it's been an absolute pleasure following Bottisford Town's FA Cup journey. They've made me feel so welcome in every round, but sadly I now have to say goodbye to them. I will be returning to the Barrett Steel Stadium before the season ends. I want to wish them all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully I can come along to a promotion party in April. As for Bromsgrove Sporting, well, the road to Wembley continues with them in a couple of weeks' time. The third qualifying round draw was made yesterday, and it's a familiar tie for them. In fact, it's a repeat of this very same stage last season. They've been drawn away to Chelmsford City of the National League South. So I'll be following Bromsgrove Sporting to the Melbourne Community Stadium on September the 28th in what will be the furthest trip the FA Cup has taken me on so far, and another new ground. We're only 2 matches away from the first round proper now, so could one of these two clubs make it there? So with Bottisford Town's journey over, it was time to adopt one of my old clubs going into the third qualifying round. Bromsgrove Sporting's reward for narrowly overcoming Bottisford was a tough trip down south to Chelmsford City's Melbourne Stadium, and my longest journey so far. This season, I'm following the FA Cup from the extra preliminary round right through to the final in May. This is match 5 of my 14-round journey to Wembley, so if this is something you're interested in, please check out my playlist where you'll find all the previous matches, and consider subscribing to support my channel. In the last round, I watched Bromsgrove Sporting end Bottisford Town's record-breaking FA Cup run, and at the weekend I followed Sporting down to the Melbourne Community Stadium, home of Chelmsford City in Essex. Not only was this a new ground for me, but it was by far the furthest I've had to travel on my journey so far. As it was a nearly 3-hour drive and the club had let me know there was limited parking on site, I travelled down the night before so I could get to the ground nice and early. There were a lot more car parking spaces than I expected to see on site, but the football clubs share the car park with the sports centre next door, so I can imagine it gets very busy on match days. I had no issues finding a space though. As I got there a few hours before kick-off, I had plenty of time to take a walk round the corner to the Red Beret pub, which I'd read is one of the best places for away fans to visit. And it's a nice little pub, and just a couple of minutes walk from the ground. The Melbourne Community Stadium is owned by the local council and is primarily an athletics stadium, and it's an interesting layout. There's a very large main stand with 3 other small supporter areas around the pitch. It wasn't immediately very clear where you can and can't stand, but it became a little more obvious once I had a walk around the ground. There's a running track around the pitch, so the main stand and supporter areas along the touchline are quite far back, while the 2 standing areas behind the goal are very close to the pitch. I'd seen several reviews online that said the Melbourne Stadium isn't a great place to watch football due to how far back the main stand is, but I saw no issue with it. In fact, I felt the view from the main stand was a lot better than behind the goal. The running track does make you feel like you're a long way from the action, but the main stand is quite high up, which makes up for it. The atmosphere did feel a little flat at times, but I think that's due to how open this stadium is. My wife made the trip down to Chelmsford with me, keen to see if their food could better Bromsgrove Sporting's pork stuffing bap. And there's a food stall on site right outside the main clubhouse, so you're greeted by a very tempting smell of food when entering the stadium. My wife was a little disappointed that they didn't have any pulled pork on this occasion, but there's so much food to choose from. And it's one of the most efficient food stalls I've seen, certainly at a football ground. When we came to get some food at half-time, I was a bit put off by the fairly large queue that had built up, but the staff managed to get everyone served in minutes. It was impressive, and the food is really high quality. The Clarets Bar is a decent place to get a drink too, and it shows Premier League matches. And although the Newcastle Man City game was on when we went into the bar, it was big enough that we were able to get a seat. And along the bar it's got a list of Chelmsford City's achievements and past players, which is a nice touch. After I'd had some food, I checked out their club shop, which has a wide range of items available. I picked up this Chelmsford City scarf to go with the rest of my FA Cup memorabilia, but there's hats, bags, replica shirts and all sorts, as well as a little cabin next door with previous season's programmes, which is ideal for collectors. Once I'd finished exploring the ground, I went up to the main stand for the main event. 6th tier Chelmsford City are in their claret home shirts, while 7th tier Bromsgrove Sporting are in their green and white away kit. And instantly you could tell the hosts were up for this one. They looked fit, agile and composed on the ball. In the last round I'd seen Bottisford Town compete with a team 2 leagues above them, and considering there was only 1 league difference here, the step up was evident. Sporting's defence and goalkeeper Charlie Price were busy right away as Chelmsford had several chances in the early stages, before finally breaking down the visiting defence in the 16th minute. There were some appeals from Sporting for a foul in the build-up, but City's Jordan Greenidge nipped in to head home from close range, and this one looked like it could be a rout. Chelmsford's Kane Critchlow and Osmond Foyo looked dangerous every time they got hold of the ball, and just before half-time, Foyo found himself clean through on Price, but somehow put it over the bar. And at half-time, it was Chelmsford City 1, Bromsgrove Sporting 0. And although the visitors had defended brilliantly, they were lucky it wasn't 3 or 4 at the break. Charlie Price in goal was excellent. I took a walk around to the stand behind the goal at half-time, but a crowd of home supporters had beaten me to it. With the stand being very busy and close to the pitch, I found my view was quite obstructed, so I went back up to the main stand.
10 minutes.
The second half started off pretty much the same way the first had ended, with Chelmsford dominating, though Sporting did find themselves with the odd chance amongst the barrage of attacks coming their way. Charlie Price continued to keep his side in the game, and then on 53 minutes Foyo broke through the defence again, only to see his shot hit both posts before coming back out into the arms of Price. How close can you get without scoring? Surely this was just a matter of time. And 10 minutes later, Chelmsford did have a second. A well-worked attack found its way through to Kane Critchlow, who scored from close range. And surely there was no way back now. But if anything, Sporting started to look more lively after that second goal, and the introduction of Ryan Snape. And on 71 minutes, he hit a fierce free kick just wide of Ted Collins' post. On 90 minutes, Collins had to react well to keep out an effort from Rowe. But Bromsgrove Sporting did get a late consolation through Shaquille Leachman Whittingham on 90+3, which led to a bit of a nervy finish for the hosts, though it never looked that likely that they'd force a replay. The final score was Chelmsford City 2, Bromsgrove Sporting 1, and Chelmsford, it's safe to say, are the best team I've seen on this road to Wembley so far. A huge amount of credit has to be given to Bromsgrove Sporting here though. They were up against it from the start, but defended brilliantly for 90 minutes, and were never completely out of this one. Man of the match for me was an easy one. It has to be Sporting goalkeeper Charlie Price. He made some top quality saves to keep the score down and looked strong in the air. The attendance was 808, which is fairly average for the Melbourne Stadium this season. I would have liked to stick with Bromsgrove Sporting for a little bit longer, but sadly I need to leave them behind. It's Chelmsford City who I'll be following into the fourth and final qualifying round in a couple of weeks' time. The National League sides enter the competition at this stage, and the draw wasn't kind to the Clarets at all. They've been drawn away to National League leaders Barnet, which is about as tough as it gets at this stage. And what a prediction this was by my friend Sam. I really enjoyed my day at the Melbourne Stadium. It's one of the strangest layouts I've come across at a football ground, but it's very hard to find any negatives about the experience. Staff are all friendly and enthusiastic, the food is excellent, they have an impressive clubhouse, and everything seems really well organised. I will be returning to the UK Electrical Stadium in Bromsgrove before the season ends, but for now my next destination is Barnet's Hive Stadium in a couple of weeks' time. So my time with Bromsgrove Sporting was brief, but could Chelmsford put together a better run? They were given probably the toughest tie they could have got at this stage, an away day at National League leaders Barnet. But who would I be following into the first round proper? So this is it. After 10 weeks, 2 preliminary and 3 qualifying rounds, we've arrived at the fourth and final qualifying round of this season's FA Cup. My journey started at 9th tier Hucknall Town, where they narrowly lost 3-2 to Bottisford Town. I then followed Bottisford Town for their 2 home victories against Winterton Rangers and Loughborough Students, before their run ended in Worcestershire at the hands of Bromsgrove Sporting. Sporting were given a very tricky away tie to National League South side Chelmsford City, which proved to be one step too far, and as a result I followed Chelmsford down to Barnet's Hive Stadium on Saturday. With Barnet currently leading the way in the National League, this was the toughest draw Chelmsford could have been given, but after watching the way they played against Bromsgrove and looking through match highlights on their YouTube channel, it's clear that they're a very capable side. Barnet had to be huge favourites for this one though. I haven't been to many grounds in this part of the country, so the Hive was a new one for me. It was very easy to find and has a huge car park. I was there early, so I didn't have to fight for a parking space, but I can imagine it fills up very quickly on match days. The Hive is more of a sports complex than just a football stadium, as there are numerous 3G pitches on site, a gym, a conference room, and a nice little cafe that looks right out onto the pitch. As well as Barnet, the Hive is home to women's team London Bees, and it was used by Tottenham Hotspur's women until 2022. It has a capacity of 6,500, and although it's missing a stand on the south side of the ground, it's a nice stadium, and a really good place to watch football. I was in the away end, and my view was fantastic. Before the game though, I wanted to get some food and check out the club shop. I had a ham and cheese toastie at the Hive Bar Cafe, which is run by Starbucks, then went on the hunt for the club shop. Finding the shop wasn't easy though. Online it said it was open all day on match days, and from what I could see by the pictures, it should have been right next to the cafe, but it wasn't. No issues though. I nipped into the main reception and the staff were happy to help. It turns out the club shop had recently been moved to the other side of the ground, so I took a wander. The only problem with that is it's now located behind the home turnstiles, so I wasn't able to go in with my away ticket. I'd just have to get my souvenir after the game if it was still open. So off I went to the away end, located on the northern side of the stadium. I went in really early, but there was still a queue, so I could tell that Chelmsford had brought a lot of fans. And the away supporters get their own bar. It's a huge open space underneath the north stand that has Sky Sports playing. When I got there, it had already started to fill up with lively away fans. There's a burger bar just inside the away turnstiles, so I had to sample the food again. I went for a big greasy cheeseburger, which was pretty standard for a football ground, but you will pay London prices. My cheeseburger was £7.50 and it was nowhere near as good as the food at Chelmsford or Bromsgrove. I'm not saying Barnet's food is poor, far from it, just that those other clubs are exceptional in that area. Chelmsford lead the way with their food as far as I'm concerned, but my wife is still adamant that Bromsgrove's is better. It might not have the best food I've come across, but Barnet's Hive Stadium is certainly the best place to watch a game that I've come across on this journey. Look at how good my view was from the away end. In the North Stand you're pretty well covered too, as I discovered when the torrential rain arrived about 10 minutes before kick-off. The rain stopped just before the two teams came out though, and the Chelmsford City fans were well up for this one. So National League leaders Barnet take on National League South Chelmsford City for a place in the first round, and a chance to take on one of the teams from Leagues 1 or 2. Barnet are in their orange home kit, while Chelmsford are in their white away kit. Can they produce a shock here? In the early stages, Chelmsford's Osman Foyo and Jordan Greenwich, who had terrorised Bromsgrove, looked lively. Greenwich had the first clear chance of the game, but headed wide, and Barnet seemed to wake up after that early scare and started upping the tempo. On 26 minutes, they deservedly took the lead through Callum Stead from close range. Chelmsford were still in the game until just before half-time when they were caught out at the back. Bailey Hobson played a low cross into Stead, who scored his second. 2-0 to Barnet at half-time, a little unfair on the visitors, but the home side's quality was starting to show. I didn't think there was any way back into this one at 2-0, but you never know in the cup. At half-time I was treated to this nice little memory of one of my previous FA Cup trips. The second half started with Barnet looking dangerous. At this point I was starting to think a Barnet third was a lot more likely than any sort of Chelmsford fight back. But then Osman Foyo powered through the Barnet defence, only to be denied brilliantly by Nick Hayes in the home goal. The turning point, if you can call it that, at 2-0 came just after the hour mark when a clumsy tackle on Ryan Glover from Arthur Penny was punished with a red card. I've watched this foul a few times now and I think a yellow would have been fair, but a red card seems really harsh, and that totally killed any chance of a fight back. Ryan Glover made it 3-0 on 75 minutes, and now the 10 men just had to focus on keeping the score down. Ted Collins had a decent game in the Chelmsford goal, but he found himself powerless when Barnet broke through his defence once again on 90 minutes. The ball came across to Zach Brunt, who lobbed it over the on-rushing Collins to make it 4-0, and that's how it stayed until the 9 minutes of time added on were up. I thought 4-0 was really harsh on Chelmsford, but their fans didn't stop singing throughout, and despite the heavy scoreline, they celebrated their players after the final whistle. The attendance was 1,503, and it's difficult to pick a man of the match after a performance like that, but I'm going with Barnet's Callum Stead for his 2 goals. I can see why Barnet are top of the National League, They're very well organised and looked solid from back to front, and didn't give anything away even when the game was effectively won at 3-0. I doubt many Football League clubs would want to come down to the Hive in the first round, but as it turns out, they won't be. In Monday night's draw, Barnet were given an away tie at League One Exeter City, which is a really tough fixture, but I wouldn't rule them out. Should the League One side have an off day, Barnet are capable of causing an upset there. Despite Exeter being a lot further than anywhere else I've travelled on this journey so far, I can't wait for that game. I was really happy that I did manage to get into the club shop after the match. The guy working there was just about to close, so I really appreciated him being patient enough to let me have a look around and get my souvenir. He was really friendly and told me he supports Manchester United, who Barnet would have played last season had they won their replay against Newport. And it's a decent club shop. It looks a little understocked in my video as I went after the match, but there was still a lot of good quality items on sale. I came away with a Barnet hat, and there was no physical copy of the match programme, so I'd have to download that online. So I have to say goodbye to Chelmsford City. I'll be returning to the Melbourne Stadium for a recap before the season ends, but it's Barnet who I'll be following into the first round of the FA Cup. So, an absolute demolition in the fourth qualifying round. Barnet were way too strong for the Clarets, and I couldn't imagine many Football League clubs wanting to play them in that kind of form. The first round draw handed me my longest journey yet, as Barnet were drawn away to Devon-based Exeter City of League One, and this was easily the most entertaining game of the entire journey. It was just unreal. At the weekend, I made the 4-hour journey down to Devon as I followed my current club of focus, Barnet, down to Exeter City's St James Park, my longest journey so far. I have been down to Exeter on many occasions in the past as I have some family down there, but I hadn't been to see a game at St James Park. And as the first round proper is a special occasion, I bought tickets in their hospitality suite. The first thing I noticed about Exeter City is that they're very active on their social media channels. Every time I had a query, I received a response within a couple of hours, and they were very helpful. Although there's no on-site parking at the football club, they suggested a long-stay car park that was less than 10 minutes walk away, so I had no issues leaving the car as I made my way to the stadium. At the ground, everything's really well signposted, and it's welcoming to away supporters. They'd even put a sign up acknowledging how far Barnet supporters had to travel, which was a nice touch. Exeter City's Heritage Suite hospitality experience started at 12, but I got to the ground just after 11 to give me plenty of time to get some pictures of the outside of the ground and check out their club shop. And it's an excellent club shop, which is well staffed and has so many things to choose from. I wanted to avoid buying a bobble hat or a scarf as I'm racking up a bit of a collection of those already, but my eyes kept coming back to this scarf with the Grecian's crest on it. That's really nice. And opposite the club shop there's a food van that smelled so tempting, but I resisted the urge as I didn't want to spoil the dinner I'd booked in the Heritage Suite. So after I'd explored the outside of the ground, I made my way up to the Heritage Lounge, and I want to talk about the hospitality experience as I feel like Exeter City offer a lot, but at an extremely reasonable price. At £65 per person, you get a 2-course meal pre-match, tea and cookies at half-time, and a Cornish pasty post-match, so you're going to eat well. I'm not sure if the main course varies match to match, but on Saturday we had steak pie with vegetables and mash. I'm usually really picky when it comes to steak, but I had absolutely no complaints here, as the meat was really good quality. As well as the food, you get to hear from some guest speakers before and after the game. The pre-match interviews were with first-team manager Gary Caldwell and defender John Lee Ifeko, who's currently sidelined through injury. And post-match, there's a presentation with the man of the match, which I'll get into a bit later on. Alongside all of that, you get a match programme and a padded VIP seat in the main stand. Considering your match ticket is included in that price, I feel like St James Park's hospitality package is a fantastic deal. Exeter City are supporter-owned, which they proudly advertise around the ground, and they have every right to be proud of what they've achieved here. Having just been relegated to the National League with millions of pounds of debt hanging over them and bankruptcy looking likely, the Supporters Club took over in September 2003 and managed to steer them away from liquidation through various fundraising events, supporter donations and thousands of hours of work from volunteers at the club. And their pride really shines through. There's a real buzz about this club, everything is so well organised and the staff genuinely care about your experience. As someone who's witnessed my own club go bankrupt through mismanagement, I can really appreciate how much of a success story Exeter City is and what their supporters club has achieved. What about the game itself though?
Exeter City.
It's League One Exeter City in their red and white home strip, while National League Barnet are in their purple and white away kit. I didn't manage to catch all of the action, but the club were kind enough to let me use this brilliant pitch-side footage. And early on, it looked like this was going to be a routine win for the League One side, as they cut through Barnet's defence with relative ease for Josh McGuinness to put them ahead after 13 minutes. But this game was anything but routine. Exeter did everything they could to take control of this game as they looked for a second goal, but Barnet's defence seemed to sort itself out after the first. And not long before half-time they got an equaliser, totally against the run of play, with this nice curling effort from Ryan Glover, who'd been outstanding in the last round. And it was 1-1 at half-time. The visitors somewhat fortunate to go into the break level. Exeter City had been extremely well organised at the back, but Barnet took their one chance clinically. It was an entertaining first half, but the second half was breathtaking. Barnet started the second half at a much higher tempo, and they found themselves in front when Zach Brunt's effort deflected past Joe Whitworth and into the bottom corner. My route to Wembley hasn't witnessed any real shocks yet, but was this about to be the first? From that point, it was a desperate game of attack against defence, and I wasn't sure Exeter would find an equaliser with the time seeming to run down very quickly. But then Danny Collins brought down Dimitri Mitchell in the penalty area, giving them a great chance to equalise. Josh McGuinness, under immense pressure, found the net from the spot to make it 2-2 on 76 minutes, and from then on, chaos followed. Barnet were back in front within 2 minutes as Exeter's defence switched off briefly, which allowed Nick Kabamba to make it 3-2.
Go on.
5 minutes from the end of the 90, Exeter were awarded their second penalty of the game after Ilmari Niskanen was brought down. There were some complaints about that decision, but for me that was a blatant penalty. Let me know in the comments if you feel that was a harsh decision though.
Go on.
Northern Ireland international Josh McGuinness, under even more pressure than before, completed his hat-trick from the penalty spot, and although time was running out, it felt like this game wasn't finished. And with extra time looking likely, what a save this was from Nick Hayes with the score at 3-3. But deep into stoppage time, Jay Bird was sent through one-on-one with Hayes in the Barnet goal, and despite slipping as he attempted to go round the keeper, he somehow managed to steer the ball into the net. I've watched this one several times now, and I still can't work out how this managed to find its way in. But a goal's a goal, and then it was Barnet who had to find an equaliser. With seconds remaining, Barnet won a corner, and they sent everyone up, including their goalkeeper.
Yeah, the keeper's going up. He wasn't injured. Oh no. God.
And after a bit of a goalmouth scramble, Exeter cleared and Kamari Doyle found himself with an open goal, which he found from 30 yards with the defenders catching up on him. And that finished off a crazy game of football. Final score, Exeter City 5, Barnet 3. Will I see a better game than that en route to Wembley Stadium? I'm not so sure, but I'm looking forward to finding out. The attendance was 4,244, and man of the match was Exeter's hat-trick hero Josh McGuinness, who gave a post-match interview in the Heritage Lounge, and I even managed to get my picture taken with him. Considering it was still only 2-1 to Barnet on 76 minutes, that was a crazy finish to the game, but I think the result was fair. Exeter City were well organised and stuck to their game plan despite the setbacks, while Barnet are devastatingly clinical going forward. This was a proper cup tie. As this was the first time I've sampled matchday hospitality on this journey, it would be a little unfair to compare this experience to all the previous rounds, but I loved everything about my visit to St James Park. There's a real buzz around the ground, and during the game the atmosphere was great too. As a Hereford fan who witnessed the brilliance of Adam Stansfield, who sadly passed away in 2010, I really appreciated the tributes to him around the ground, and the fans still sing his name all these years later. That's a lovely touch. What a great tribute. So, as was the case with Bromsgrove Sporting and Chelmsford City, my time with Barnet was brief, and I have to say goodbye to them. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them return to the Football League this season. They're building a really competitive squad, and I've seen how dangerous they are going forward. They might need to sort that defence out though. As for Exeter City, well, I'll be adopting them until they exit the competition, and the second round draw was made on Sunday. So I'll be returning to St James Park on November the 30th as they host Chesterfield, in a tie that would have been some 200 miles closer to home had it been the other way round. I have no problem with returning to Exeter though. They certainly made the 4-hour journey worthwhile, and while Chesterfield will be a tough test, this is another winnable tie with a potentially huge trip to a Premier League club looming for whoever wins it. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to Exeter City, not only for allowing me to use their footage in my video, but for such a brilliant matchday experience. What an incredible cup tie that was. Despite a huge scare, Exeter managed to overcome their National League opponents in a frantic end to that first round tie. And that trip down to Devon took me over the 1,000 mile mark, and the second round draw took me right back down there. At the weekend, I made another 4-hour journey down to Devon to watch the second round match between League One Exeter City and Chesterfield of League Two. As the first round proper was a bit of a milestone on my journey, I'd sampled St James Park's matchday hospitality last time I was here, but I wanted a different experience this time round, so I bought my tickets in the Adam Stansfield stand. I talked about Exeter City's hospitality package in my last video. You can find a link to that in the description under this video, but it's a fantastic experience. And at £65 per person, it's great value too. On arriving at the ground, the first thing I noticed was that the fan zone now has a temporary cover, which is a great addition as the weather was horrible on my walk up to the stadium. And as we had to be out of our hotel room by 11 AM, we arrived at the ground very early again. There's plenty to do in the fan zone though, so it didn't feel like we were hanging around too much. Located in the centre of the fan zone, the club shop has a wide range of Exeter City merchandise available, and it's well staffed so you won't have to spend too long queuing, even if it's busy. Opposite the club shop there's Thatcher's Bar, which sells a selection of beers and ciders, and right next to that is one of my main points of interest on this trip, the Kenneford Farm food stall. At first glance, the food here seems quite expensive. My wife had the hog roast bat, which was £8.50, but the food is such high quality that it justified its asking price. Exeter City were in competition with Bromsgrove Sporting and Chelmsford City, who have fantastic matchday food, but I think the Kenneford Farm stall's locally sourced food edges it here. Also in the fan zone, located next to the main ticket office, is the Centre Spot Bar. I didn't even notice this was here during my last trip, but it's a spacious area where you can relax pre-match, or buy a pasty or pie, so you really are spoiled for choice if you want to get food around the ground. I've been to so many football grounds that have an intimidating feel to them, especially as a visiting supporter, but St James Park feels really welcoming, and I noticed plenty of visiting fans among the home crowd as the atmosphere started to build. And at around 1 PM the players start arriving, and they're all happy to sign autographs and have pictures taken with fans. Here's Ilmari Niskanen giving an interview and having a laugh with some of the supporters in the fan zone. He was one of the first players to arrive and one of the last to disappear inside the ground, and had a beaming smile on his face while engaging with the fans. It would be so easy for the players to put their heads down and quickly disappear down the tunnel, but meeting the fans before the game has become something of a tradition at Exeter City. So after watching the players arrive, we took a walk round to the other side of the ground to the Adam Stansfield stand. And since I was last here, they've opened up a new merchandise kiosk which sells everything that's available at the club shop. This is a great addition, as not only will it reduce queuing at the main club shop, but it enables supporters arriving via the train station at this end of the ground to purchase memorabilia without having to walk all the way around the stadium. And cutting that walk out might be ideal for the club's older or less mobile supporters too. I'm easily tempted when it comes to food, so after enjoying a sausage roll and picking up a match programme, we took our seats in the Adam Stansfield stand. Although the view was good in the main stand, I feel like it's even better here, and while I was taking photos of the stadium, I was photobombed by Lexi the Lion, who stopped by to say hello. As the kickoff started to get closer, the atmosphere around the ground started to build, and considering the away supporters had to travel quite some distance, Chesterfield brought several hundred fans, and they were vocal. You could tell they fancied a bit of an upset.
Chesterfield and your Exeter City.
Exeter City are in their red and white, while Chesterfield are in blue, and with a place in the third round waiting for one of these two teams, the referee got the game underway. In the last round, Barnet had brought an attack-minded lineup which resulted in a high-scoring game, while Chesterfield had set themselves up a lot more defensively, with the massive Jamie Grimes in defence and Max Thompson in goal. And although Exeter kept creating chances in the first half, Chesterfield's defence dealt with the pressure well, and Max Thompson was putting in a solid performance in goal. I was impressed with his overall positioning and awareness of the game. But after defending so well and withstanding the barrage of attacks in the opening 45 minutes, the visitors will be extremely disappointed to concede such a soft goal 2 minutes into first half stoppage time. A Ryan Woods corner floated over to the head of Tristan Kramer, who strolled into the penalty area totally unmarked to make it 1-0. A deserving half-time lead for Exeter, but after such a solid defensive display from Chesterfield, that goal was massively out of character. They'd need to come at Exeter in the second half, and they did have a couple of chances to equalise, though Joe Whitworth was able to deal with everything that came his way. With Chesterfield pushing for the equaliser midway through the second half, they were caught out on the break, and Josh McGuinness made it 2-0 with his fourth goal of this season's FA Cup.
Moving men up in numbers, back in towards Banks to Oldacre, but it's won cheaply by Aitchison. Aitchison's going on the run. Aitchison trying to run past defenders. He's still got room. Is he going to slot it to Niskanen? Yes, he does. Niskanen with a cross in the box! And there's the...
That goal seemed to kill off any chance of a fight back as Exeter professionally saw out the rest of the game. So the final score, Exeter City 2, Chesterfield 0. So it's Exeter who go into round 3 and now have the potential to meet one of the giants from the Premier League. Man of the match was Exeter's Tristan Kramer, who came up with the first goal as well as managing a clean sheet in the heart of the home side's defence. The official attendance was 4,782, which included 456 from Chesterfield. And that's a brilliant turnout. Fair play to every one of the visiting supporters who made the nearly 10-hour round trip. I think that was a fair result overall. Chesterfield offered very little going forward despite looking like a strong and capable team, but that's a credit to Exeter's organisation at the back. Despite this tie being around 200 miles closer to home had it been played at Chesterfield, I had another brilliant experience at St James Park. Exeter City are not only well supported, but it's the fans themselves who own the club, and they're extremely proud of that fact. They have every right to be proud of what they've achieved since saving the club from bankruptcy when they took over in 2003 though. Every single staff member wears the badge with pride, and they all seem happy to be working at St James Park. Everything is so clean and tidy as well. They even have volunteers who litter pick the stadium immediately after the game ends. Exeter City are a fantastic example of how a football club should be run. On Monday night, the draw for the third round was made, and I have to say, that was probably the most exciting point of this journey for me so far.
Very unpopular.
Number 47.
The draw must go on. Number 47 are Exeter City. They've not progressed beyond round 3 since 1981. This room's not going to be quiet now.
No. 29.
Exeter City will be taking on Oxford United, 17.
And it's another trip down to Devon for me, as the Grecians have been drawn at home to Championship side Oxford United. And check out this prediction by Amazing Gaming 2521, who called it, though it won't be at the Kassam. That tie falls on my birthday weekend, so I'm undecided as to whether I follow the advice of so many of you in my comments section and check out the Big Bank, or whether I treat myself to another hospitality package. But one thing's for sure, I'm really looking forward to my next visit to St James Park. Thanks once again to Exeter City for allowing me to use your brilliant pitchside footage in my video. Let me know in the comments if you were at Saturday's game, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you want to follow the rest of my FA Cup journey that will end at Wembley Stadium in May. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you down in Devon in 6 weeks' time.
Chesterfield and your Exeter City.
Exeter City blew Chesterfield away in that second round tie, and by the time the third round draw was made, Exeter City's media team had got hold of my journey. So when I was handed my third consecutive trip down to Devon, I was invited to give an interview ahead of their game against Oxford United, as they attempt to make the fourth round for the first time since 1981. Here's my interview with the third round vlog following.
Welcome back to St James Park for the third time this season as part of your FA Cup challenge or journey, if you like. Tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing and why, as a random Hereford fan from Nottingham, you've ended back up at Exeter for the third time.
So I love the FA Cup and I love lower league football. So I decided that I wanted to do the run to Wembley from the extra preliminary round right at the start of August all the way through to Wembley. So I started with my local side, which is Hucknall Town, and I've been following the winner's path all the way through, which has led me to Exeter City for round 1, 2 and 3.
Obviously you're here for the first round game against Barnet. I think that is the epitome of an FA Cup game, wasn't it? A crazy match.
That was honestly one of the best games of football I've ever seen. I think that is probably the highlight of the journey because I went in the hospitality suite as well. It's the first time I've done hospitality at a football ground for a long time, and the whole experience was brilliant. And then that game of football, I think the last 15 minutes of that game was just breathless, breathtaking.
Yeah, God forbid anyone that left early. A bit more routine against Chesterfield, thankfully, a 2-0 win.
Yeah.
But, you know, great that you've come back and you've really enjoyed your time here.
I've loved it, yeah. I think the thing I've noticed the most about this club is how proud everyone is of it. As a Hereford supporter that's watched my own club go bankrupt, when the Supporters Trust didn't get hold of the club, they sold to somebody else and the club went under as a result of mismanagement. So I'm really impressed with what the Supporters Club's done here. And you go into the bar, I think I went into the Adam Stansfield stand last time. Even the staff sort of behind the kiosks, everyone just seems so proud of the club and what you've achieved, and you really should be as well. It's brilliant.
Feels like fate really as well, being a Hereford fan, obviously the club's links with Adam Stansfield as well. It's all worked out quite nicely.
It's worked out brilliantly. And also I played football myself at a relatively good standard for Bromsgrove Rovers in the Dr. Martins League years ago, and the journey took me to Bromsgrove as well, so it's kind of bizarre how many links there have been on the road to Wembley.
So tell me a little bit about the joke your family member made when you were talking about starting this challenge.
Yeah, so my brother said, when I said I was starting at Hucknall Town and I was going to follow the journey all the way to Wembley, my brother joked, oh yeah, what if you get somewhere like Exeter and they keep winning and you have to keep going back there? Well, that's what's happened. So a couple more rounds here maybe.
You've taken it on your stride, and I like the confidence. Obviously a game against the Championship side Oxford today, so you're either going to be following Exeter or following Oxford in the next round, but
I will, yeah.
I imagine you've got a preference, right, given your previous answers.
Yeah, it's really easy to get behind Exeter. My granddad grew up in Exmouth, so he grew up with Exeter City as well. They were his local club before he moved to Hereford and decided he was a Hereford United supporter, and that's why I am. When the draw was made, I was confident that Exeter would go through, but since Oxford have had a new manager, they've started to turn things around. I think it might be a really tight game. I'm not sure. It really could go either way.
Regardless of the result today then, where do you want the next game to be against one of these two opponents?
I was saying to my wife on the way down here, I would love to end up at somewhere like Hillsborough or the Stadium of Light. I think Sheffield Wednesday or Sunderland would be brilliant grounds to go to. I don't really want a massive club yet because I don't want to have to adopt like one of the big six and then stay with them all the way through to the final.
And then try and get a ticket as well.
And then trying to get tickets as well, yeah.
Well, John, it's great to have you on. Hopefully this journey that we can continue with us, and I hope you enjoy the game today. And
thank you.
Who knows, it's the FA Cup, it might be like Barnet all over again.
Yeah, let's hope so.
At the weekend, I made another 4-hour journey, my third trip down to Devon, to watch Exeter City attempt to make history by reaching the fourth round for the first time since 1981. Standing in the way, though, was Championship side Oxford United, who had recently started to hit form and turn their season around under new manager Gary Rowett. Before the game, though, I had plenty to see and do. As I'd already been to St James Park twice, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And in the comments section of my second round video, Bernadette had suggested I book a stadium tour, which was a fantastic idea, so I did just that.
Tours of St James Park are free, and on match days they start at 11 AM, which worked alongside the hospitality package I'd booked and allowed me to get into the Heritage Suite with plenty of time to spare. The tour was led by Trust member Dave Luxton, who's extremely knowledgeable and passionate about the club. He runs tours and greets fans before every match day at St James Park. My wife and I were lucky enough to be the only two people on Saturday's tour, so we had Dave completely to ourselves, which was an added bonus. And the tour was fantastic. There's so much information to take in, and far too much to talk about in this video if I want to keep it to a reasonable length, but it's an absolute must if you get the chance to do it. The tour covers Exeter City's 1914 tour of Brazil and Argentina, during which they were the first team to ever play against the Brazil national team, and they brought back a few priceless souvenirs from the trip, which are displayed in the Exeter City Museum, alongside all of the historical trophies won by both the men's and women's teams. A huge part of Exeter City history is their game against Manchester United at Old Trafford in 2005, with the club having some financial issues in the first few years of the supporters' ownership. That game in the FA Cup hugely boosted their finances during their time of need. And not only that, City played out a famous draw against Sir Alex's team, so also had the benefits of a replay at St James Park, a game in which Sir Alex wasn't taking any chances, so brought most of his first team, including Cristiano Ronaldo. And that's an opportunity that's been taken away from the smaller clubs at the start of this season. But look at who Exeter were playing right before that famous trip to Manchester. After walking around the stadium, we got to sit in the dugouts, then had a look around both the home and away dressing rooms. Sometimes the away team don't allow you into their changing rooms ahead of the game, but the Oxford United coaching staff not only allowed us in, but were really friendly and happy to have a bit of a chat with us. There are so many things about the St James Park tour that I could cover. Thank you to Bernadette for the suggestion, and let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about the tour in a separate video. I'll be more than happy to do so if there's enough interest. I'd initially planned to go in the Big Bank for this game, but as it was my birthday weekend, my wife had bought tickets in the Heritage Lounge. So once Dave's brilliant stadium tour had finished, we went up there for some food. I've spoken about how good Exeter City's food is in previous videos, and I'm obsessed with food, so I simply have to mention the pork belly, which was delicious. After lunch, first team manager Gary Caldwell came up for a pre-match interview where he talked about his team's desire to make history by reaching the fourth round for the first time in 44 years.
So when the big boys come in and there's that excitement, anticipation of getting a Premier League club.
And then we took our seats in the main stand. During the stadium tour, we'd been told about an ex-player called Jimmy Giles who'd recently written a book about his football career. Well, it turns out we were sitting right next to him. I did manage to get a photo with him, although he did seem to prefer being photographed with my wife. What a lovely man though, he was laughing and joking with us all afternoon, and despite being from Oxfordshire himself, you can tell just how fond he is of Exeter City. Jimmy's book is called Jimmy Giles 110%, and you can find it on Amazon for £15. I've put a link in the description so you can go and check it out for yourself. I'm going to get myself a copy as I bet that man has some really interesting stories to tell. So, with the biggest crowd on this journey so far, the atmosphere was starting to build as the two teams came out, and it's Exeter in their red and white while Oxford are in their white away kit. And Exeter made a sluggish start to the game. Joe Whitworth was called into action inside the first 30 seconds in a real signal of intent from the visitors. And with the away fans making a lot of noise, it only took Oxford United 14 minutes to go ahead through Matt Phillips, who finished off a devastating breakaway to make it 1-0.
Finds Scarlett. Scarlett will look into the middle. There's Phillips! And Oxford have gone from defence to attack, and they take the lead on the 13-minute mark.
This looked like it could be a long afternoon for the League One side. But after withstanding a bit of pressure, Gary Caldwell's team changed shape and started to get themselves into the game. And on 22 minutes, Dimitri Mitchell equalised with a nice volley. And with Exeter sensing that they might be able to get a result, Mitchell put them ahead just before half-time with another fantastic finish.
Mitchell shoots! And Exeter have got the lead!
So Exeter City went in at half-time 2-1 ahead, and after a poor opening 15 minutes or so, you really wouldn't be able to tell which team was the championship side. Early in the second half, with things not going their way, Oxford introduced new signing, Chelsea loanee Alex Matos. But before he had a chance to make any impact at all, Vincent Harper made it 3-1 with yet another fantastic finish. And Exeter were in total control.
Needs a decent ball forward, finds Harper, edge of the penalty area. Harper on his left foot, shoots! Oh, what a goal! Vince Harper has found the bottom corner.
Oxford did have a few chances to get themselves back in the game in the final 20 minutes, but their task was made even more difficult in the 81st minute when substitute Tyler Goodrum was sent off for lashing out in retaliation to a foul by Jake Richards. Exeter did have a few chances to make it 4 towards the end, but after the red card it became more of a case of holding what they had rather than trying to extend the lead.
There's an entire generation of Exeter City supporters who have never seen this.
So the final score, Exeter City 3, Oxford United 1, and with that Exeter are in the fourth round draw for the first time since 1981. So an achievement that a whole generation of supporters will have witnessed for the very first time, and I got to see it. It was much deserved. The attendance was 6,149, including 640 who made the long journey from Oxford. Dimitri Mitchell was man of the match for his 2 goals, but I want to give a special mention to 17-year-old Exeter midfielder Jake Richards, who, had it not been for the 2 goals of Mitchell, may have been man of the match himself. He put in a solid performance and looked extremely comfortable against higher-ranked opposition despite his young age. And he clearly has a bright future, so I hope the club can hold on to him for a bit longer, though I'm told there are a few bigger clubs sniffing around him. I got to meet Dimitri Mitchell in the Heritage Suite as he gave his post-match interview, and he was so excited to be through to round 4. And as an Arsenal fan who used to play for Manchester United himself, he was hoping for an away tie at whoever won that game.
3 really good goals as well.
The draw for the fourth round took place on Sunday evening, and after joking about having to travel 4 hours to see Nottingham Forest play,
Exeter City, they have got a home game, so who will be going to St James's Park? There's a 44-year wait to reach round 4.
Number 28.
And they will be welcoming Nottingham Forest.
it actually happened. So Exeter City will host Nottingham Forest in the fourth round in a tie that would have been so much easier for me had it been drawn at the City Ground. I have no problem with returning to Exeter though. I've had a brilliant experience at St James's Park every time I've visited, and the club have treated me so well since the moment I got in touch with them about my challenge. It's all been quite overwhelming really. Amazingly, Exeter City did manage to make it through to the fourth round in a stunning display that blew away their championship opponents. And in the fourth round, they were given a tie that would have been so much closer to home had it been played at the City Ground. Just when I thought Exeter City couldn't do any more for me, I had a phone call from Nick Hawker, the chairman himself, inviting my wife and I to come along to the boardroom for that huge game against Nottingham Forest. This one is special, and I don't think I'll ever have a better matchday experience than this. In the last round, I watched Exeter City beat Championship side Oxford United to book their place in the fourth round for the first time since 1981, and their reward was a huge home tie with Premier League side Nottingham Forest. Forest are sitting among the Champions League places in third, and after Liverpool's shock defeat to Plymouth, they're the highest ranked team remaining. Exeter, on the other hand, were the lowest ranked team in the competition after League Two Doncaster Rovers lost to Crystal Palace on Monday night. And as this tie had been moved to the Tuesday evening, the 5th round draw was made before these two teams had even reached the stadium.
Number 5, Exeter City or Nottingham Forest. If they win, they will have a home tie to look forward to.
Number 6.
And the last ball should be Ipswich Town.
And in the 5th round, it's either another trip down to Devon or a much closer tie at the City Ground, as the winners of this game have been drawn at home to Ipswich Town. Neither side could afford to think about that potential home tie though. Exeter City had to focus on causing an upset, while Nottingham Forest were hoping to avoid potentially the biggest FA Cup shock of the season. This was my 4th trip down to Exeter, and ever since I first contacted them about my FA Cup challenge, they've made me feel so welcome. I've met several of the players, had a tour, and I was even interviewed by their media team during my last visit. So surely they couldn't possibly do any more than they already had for me. But how wrong could I be? A few days after my 3rd round vlog went out, I had a call from Nick Hawker, chairman of the Exeter City Supporters Trust. He'd seen my previous videos and wanted to invite my wife and I to watch the Nottingham Forest game from the boardroom as his guests. What an incredible gesture. I was already excited about this fixture, but after that phone call, this one couldn't come around fast enough. So after what seemed like ages, we made the 4-hour trip down to Devon. I like to get to football grounds early, and usually we're among the first ones there, but despite arriving at 5 PM for an 8 PM kickoff, the atmosphere was already starting to build. The fan zone has been equipped with a DJ booth, and ITV's cameras joined the growing set of supporters awaiting the arrival of the players. This felt like it was going to be a really special night under the St James Park lights. We got a drink from the Kenneford Farm stall, which serves fantastic food by the way, bought a scarf from the club shop, then went up to the boardroom to meet Nick, and what a lovely man. I wasn't sure what to expect from the boardroom, as we'd never experienced anything like this before, but what a surreal yet brilliant experience. We were immediately introduced to various members of the Exeter City board, and not only was it overwhelming that they all seemed to know who I was, but they'd all watched my previous videos. When I started making these videos back in August, I thought I might get 1 or 2 shares on social media from various football clubs, but I didn't expect this sort of level of engagement. It was incredible. When we sat down for our pre-match meal, my wife was so close to the ITV commentary box that we could almost hear Ali McCoist, while I was sitting next to Clive Harrison, who's the Director of Supporter Engagement, which is a role that not many clubs have currently, but the fact that Exeter City do says it all about this football club. As I've said in my previous videos, Exeter City really care about the supporter experience, so Clive and the rest of the board should be incredibly proud of the work they're doing. Also on our table was the club's Director of the Day, which is awarded to a trust member purely at random for every home match, who then gets to have the boardroom experience. It's another lovely touch which makes all of the trust members feel like they're an important part of the club. And they are. They own their club after all. While we were having our meal, I'd mentioned to Clive that I was hoping to catch first team manager Gary Caldwell before his pre-match interview, and a few minutes later he appeared. I was delighted to have a chat about his team's chances and get my picture taken with him, and then it was time to take our seats in the main stand. As expected, St James Park was packed and the atmosphere was really starting to build, with a lot of noise coming from both sets of fans. Nottingham Forest had made a few changes from the team that thrashed Brighton the week before, but they still brought a strong team, with the likes of Danilo and Awoniyi starting. And Liverpool's loss at Plymouth over the weekend might not have done Exeter any favours, as Forest boss Nuno Santo had included several of their big names such as Morgan Gibbs-White and top scorer Chris Wood on the subs bench, in a move that shows just how much respect he had towards the League One team. Exeter had lost several players during the January transfer window, so had a few debutants in their starting 11, but despite their poor recent league form, there was a buzz and a feeling of belief around the ground. Just listen to that noise as the two teams came out.
Once again, we're going to those lineups for our match here this evening, starting off with visitors, Nottingham Forest.
On the drive down to Devon, my wife and I had talked about all the possibilities and favoured outcomes of this fixture and the likelihood of Exeter's cup run coming to an end. And while we both wanted to see them progress further, we had said we'd be able to accept them being knocked out by Forest with them being so local to us. But neither of us wanted to witness a hiding, especially after how well the club has treated us these past few months. But neither of us could have dreamt how well this game would start for them.
Mitchell on the left-hand side of the penalty area. Mitchell goes for goal. Oh, McGrath spills it! And Exeter have the lead!
After a terrible corner, the ball had been whipped back into the Forest penalty area, eventually finding Dimitri Mitchell, who'd scored twice against Oxford. His effort was spilled by Miguel in the Forest goal, and Josh McGuinness followed up to put Exeter City ahead after just 5 minutes. That was a really poor mistake from the keeper, but what an incredible start for the home side. But now they would have almost the entire game to try to hold it. After the early setback, Nottingham Forest started to settle into the game and their quality started to show through. They were only behind for around 10 minutes when Ramon Sosa equalised from a brilliant pass from Sangaré. Joe Whitworth probably should have done better there, but I don't think anyone will be criticising him after the performance he put in. Take a look at this save to prevent Awani putting Forest ahead. Forest did dominate the rest of the first half and they were starting to look like they'd score every time they went forward. And 8 minutes before half-time they did. Another great pass from Sangaré found Awani, who gave Whitworth no chance. What a finish that is. That's Premier League quality. So at half-time it was Exeter City 1, Nottingham Forest 2, and surely the second half would just be Forest controlling and seeing out the game now, wouldn't it? Well, no. If Exeter's first goal was unexpected, this one was even more surprising.
It's in! Exeter City are level!
After a strong start to the second half, Josh McGuinness had a header saved by Miguel, only to fall back to McGuinness, who made it 2-2. And that was Josh McGuinness' 6th goal in the FA Cup this season. So not only is he the leading scorer on my road to Wembley journey, but he leads the way in the competition proper. Although the FA website did originally credit that goal as a Bolly own goal. Despite Forest having to bring on first-team goalkeeper Matt Sells for the injured Miguel, Exeter seemed to gain a lot of belief from that equaliser and had several chances to retake the lead, with Sells having to make a number of saves and Forest needing to deal with a series of corners. Forest brought on Dominguez, Elliot Anderson and Gibbs White in an attempt to kill off the game, but Exeter held on, even after Ed Turns was sent off for a clumsy challenge on Gibbs White. And they even had a couple of chances to steal the win at the end of normal time.
He's going for goal. That's it.
So after 90 minutes, it was Exeter City 2, Nottingham Forest 2. And as recently as last season, Exeter's draw would have been rewarded with a replay at the City Ground. But since the rules have changed, it's on to extra time. Forest brought on Nico Williams and Chris Wood for extra time, and despite dominating large portions of the extra half hour and chance after chance, they couldn't find a winner. So for the first time on my road to Wembley journey, we go to a penalty shootout. And once it got to this point, it felt like there was no pressure on Exeter at all. There's absolutely no shame in losing on penalties to a team 2 leagues above you, especially while playing with one less man. On the other hand, you could sense the nerves from the Forest fans. They knew the pressure was all on them to avoid an upset.
Go on, Josh.
Josh McGuinness confidently scored Exeter's first penalty, then Chris Wood equalised for Forest. I don't think anyone expected him to miss, though Joe Whitworth did get close to his penalty. But at this point in the shootout, the Premier League quality showed. Matt Sells saved Reece Cole's penalty, Gibbs White expertly scored his, and then Angus MacDonald hit the bar. Tony Ugane did brilliantly score Exeter's fourth penalty, but with Forest scoring all of theirs, Nico Williams just had to score to send them through, and he did. So with the score after extra time 2-2, Nottingham Forest won 4-2 on penalties, and the Exeter City dream is over. But what a performance that was. I don't think many people gave them a chance ahead of this one, but the players have absolutely done themselves proud. The attendance was 8,330, with over 1,000 making the journey from Nottingham, which is unsurprisingly the highest on this journey so far. I'm not picking a man of the match, as I think the whole Exeter squad deserved to be mentioned. They worked so hard and looked totally exhausted at the end of the night. The boardroom experience didn't end at full time though, even though it was really late. I was introduced to several of the Nottingham Forest directors after the game, who all had some very positive things to say about Exeter City and their experience at St James's Park. I even got to talk to Forest chairman Nicholas Randall, who showed genuine interest in my road to Wembley journey, and I managed to grab Ali McCoist for a selfie as he was leaving, even though I ended up taking this weird video first time around.
So I'm taking a video.
So, after a fantastic run, their best in the FA Cup for 44 years, I have to say goodbye to Exeter City, at least for now. I'm sad to see them exit the competition, but I do have to say I won't miss that 8-hour round trip. As their last game of the season is just up the road at Mansfield, we will be attending, and as Devon is such a nice area of the country, we're already planning a trip down to St James Park at the beginning of next season when the weather's better. We are both adopted Grecians now after all. Thank you to everyone at Exeter City for making us feel incredibly welcome at your club, and once again letting me use your pitchside footage in this video. I haven't forgotten that I said I'd make a video of the stadium tour I had in the third round. That will be coming over the next few weeks. I just wanted to see how the FA Cup journey turned out before I get that video out there. As for Nottingham Forest, they're now my focus, and I'll see them at the City Ground for the 5th round tie in a couple of weeks' time. And amazingly, despite Exeter's poor league form ahead of that game, they took Forest all the way to a penalty shootout. What a performance that was. But with Exeter's run coming to an end, I managed to go from the furthest trip to the shortest, as Nottingham Forest were drawn at home to Ipswich Town in round 5. On Monday night, the competition took me to a new ground for the first time since early November. Nottingham Forest City Ground for their 5th round tie against Ipswich Town. An added bonus of this game being at the City Ground is that I live in Nottingham, so it was only a 6-mile trip, and by contrast, Exeter City's St James Park is 218 miles away from my home. So the FA Cup brought me right back home, at least temporarily, and as this tie had been moved to the Monday night, it was the last game of the round, and the draw for the quarter-finals had been made the night before.
Number 5, our Brighton and Hove Albion beat Newcastle United today.
Should be number 8.
Wonderful. Nothing has gone wrong. Nottingham Forest or Ipswich.
So it's a trip down to Brighton's American Express Stadium for me at the end of March, regardless who wins this one. But would I be following Nottingham Forest or Ipswich Town? And with so many of the giants of the Premier League already leaving the competition, this could be seen as a huge opportunity for one of these two teams to reach Wembley Stadium and possibly even win the FA Cup. Both of these teams have lifted the famous trophy in the past, most recently Ipswich Town in 1978, but for Nottingham Forest it's been an even longer wait, as you have to go all the way back to 1959 to see their name on the cup. With Forest being the highest ranked team left in the competition, could this be their year? As usual, I got to the ground way ahead of kick-off, and look at that view of the City Ground as I walked over Trent Bridge. The Bridgeford stand sits right on the bank of the River Trent. And it's a famous old ground, one of the oldest in English football in fact. Nottingham Forest have played here since 1898, and the stadium was named the City Ground in celebration of Nottingham's new city status, which was granted just 1 year earlier, as part of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee celebrations. And this ground has so much history. I haven't done so yet, but you can book a tour for just £25 per person, which will include the Nottingham Forest Museum and a look around their trophy room, which includes their famous European Cups. There's a small gift shop just inside the museum entrance too, which is useful if the club shop's busy. I will be booking a tour at some point, as I have a few friends who have done it, and I hear it's really impressive, so it's a must for any Forest fan. So after having a walk around the stadium, we went down to the club shop, and I wasn't allowed to take any videos in the club shop, so I had to do my filming outside. But the club shop's massive, and there's so many things to choose from. I was going to get myself something from the Forest Club shop, but my friend had bought me this shirt with my name on the back, which is really nice and saved me a bit of cash. Although I'd got to the ground early, the atmosphere was already starting to build up, with music playing outside the Boot Room bar, which sits opposite the club shop, and is a really good place for home fans to get a drink on a match day. I got a burger from the van opposite, which was decent, but Premier League pricing definitely applies. I can't complain, but Exeter City's Kennerford Farm stall is still the best matchday food I've come across on this journey, and I'm not sure that's going to be beaten. We then had a bit of a walk along the river path to check out some of the views, and I got some videos of the impressive Brian Clough and Bridgeford stands, and there was a man outside playing bagpipes who's apparently there playing before every home match. I'm not entirely sure why he does it, but he's really good and seems popular with the Forest fans. And as there was still quite a bit of time to kill before kick-off, we checked out the fan zone, which has a huge screen showing previous Forest matches and providing team news. The fan zone also has a small club shop and bar, as well as a number of kids' activities, and it's a massive area which wasn't too busy while we were in there, but I can imagine it's packed just before kick-off. So after a bit of queuing outside, I took my seat in the Brian Clough stand. I'm told that there isn't usually an issue with queuing outside the City Ground, but to be honest it wasn't really that bad. I was waiting to go in for around 10 minutes or so, and I've definitely spent longer queuing outside much smaller grounds, so it wasn't a problem at all. I was in the lower tier of the Brian Clough stand, and check out this view. I have a friend who works at Forest who helped me to get hold of my ticket, and these are brilliant seats. Just look at how close we were to the pitch. I really liked Exeter City's St James Park, which I visited 4 times on this journey, but in terms of capacity the City Ground was a huge jump up, and this is a fantastic ground, with such a good atmosphere. Listen to that noise as the two teams came out onto the pitch. Nottingham Forest are of course in their red, while Ipswich Town, backed by a really lively set of fans, are in blue. Just before kick-off I had a message from one of my friends who was also at the game telling me to get my camera out for Mull of Kintyre. And I have no words. What an atmosphere. I did wonder what sort of team we'd see for tonight's fixture, as both teams have important Premier League games coming up. Nottingham Forest are still pushing for a Champions League place, while Ipswich are fighting to keep their Premier League status, so I did expect some changes, but also, as I mentioned earlier, several of the bigger clubs have already gone out, so this could be seen as a glorious opportunity for one of these two to win some silverware. Nottingham Forest had made some changes, and similar to that night in Exeter, they had several of their big names on the bench, while Ipswich Town had rested several of their key players, with Liam Delap on the bench. After seeing those lineups, I felt Forest would win this game comfortably, but this is the FA Cup, and who knows what could happen.
Exeter gave them a huge scare in the 4th round after all. In the 6th minute of the game, there was a minute-long applause for Forest fan Sam Perkins, who'd lost his battle with motor neuron disease just a few days earlier. Despite battling his disease for 6 years, Sam had raised over £300,000 through his charity Stand Against MND, which I've included a link for in the description if you want to make a donation in his memory. The minute's applause was a really nice touch, especially as the Ipswich fans joined in as well. I can't really say much about the first half as it was uneventful, despite both sets of fans trying to get behind their teams. I'm not sure what the away support is like at the City Ground normally, as this was only my 2nd visit, but the Ipswich fans were lively throughout. And fair play to them. 3 hours is a long way to travel, especially for an evening kick-off, and given the poor form they've been in recently. There were very few chances for either side, other than a defensive mix-up almost gifting Forest a goal, and this header going just past the post, but Ipswich survived, and the two teams went in at half-time with the score 0-0. I've seen some really entertaining games on this journey so far, and that first half won't be included among those. The second half started at a much higher tempo, however, with the visitors seemingly wanting to go for a goal after sitting back in a very defensive first half. And on 53 minutes they got their goal. Forest had left George Hurst unmarked at the back post to put Ipswich ahead. Forest then sent on Gibbs White and Elliot Anderson as they searched for an equaliser.
Actually, Nate.
Go on.
And Ryan Yates scored on 68 minutes to level the tie. And what a ball that was from Anthony Elanga. And after Yates had had another goal disallowed for offside, we went to extra time for the 2nd successive round. The final score, Nottingham Forest 1, Ipswich Town 1, and the second half was much more entertaining than the first. On to extra time then, and I thought Ipswich would be keen to see out the extra half hour and take their chances with the penalty shootout. But after bringing on Liam Delap, it looked as though they were going for it. And they had chances. Deep into the second half of extra time, I felt Forest were lucky to get away with this challenge with Liam Delap running at them, though I think it was outside the penalty area. What did you think of that challenge? Should the referee have given a foul? Let me know in the comments. Forest then came agonisingly close to winning the game at the end of extra time. But despite extra time seeing probably more chances than the entire 90 minutes, we once again go to penalties. I fancied Forest to win on penalties with Matt Sells in goal. He's been one of the Premier League's best goalkeepers this season, and he made a crucial save in the shootout down in Exeter in the last round. So who would be making the trip down to Brighton?
So after a near-perfect penalty shootout, Matt Sells crucially saved Jack Taylor's penalty to send Nottingham Forest through to the quarter-finals, and one game away from a Wembley semi-final. Losing on penalties is always incredibly harsh, and I was impressed with the way Ipswich played over the course of the night. I think Forest deserved to go through overall, but Ipswich certainly had chances to win the tie in extra time. Monday night's attendance was 29,171, which interestingly is higher than the total attendance across all 10 of the previous rounds, which sits at 27,094. It was difficult to pick a man of the match in such an even game where nobody massively stood out. Morgan Gibbs-White being on the pitch seemed to energise Forest, but I'm giving man of the match to Matt Sells for his decisive penalty save. I really enjoyed my trip to the City Ground. It's a brilliant stadium that every football fan needs to experience at some point, and as I'm so close to it, I'll be making an effort to get there a bit more often in the future. As with every other club I've seen on this journey, I will be making the trip down to Ipswich Town's Portman Road at some point, though it's likely to be next season now, as my weekends are quickly starting to fill up. So it's Nottingham Forest that I'll be following down to Brighton for the FA Cup quarter-final in a few weeks' time, which will be the last game on this journey outside Wembley Stadium. I'm so close to finishing this challenge now, and I've loved every single minute of it. As I'm a Hereford fan, it's going to be interesting to reunite with Brighton, as I was there back in 1997 in that hugely important game in Brighton's history. But I probably don't remember it as fondly as they do. If you're a Brighton fan who was there at Edgar Street in 1997, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm interested to hear your story, and I'll put my email address in the description under this video. So another penalty shootout sees Forest into the quarter-finals, and after luring me into a false sense of security, the FA Cup threw up yet another long journey down south, to Brighton's Amex Stadium. This was the lowest point of the journey for me. While Brighton is a nice place and the Amex Stadium is brilliant, I was starting to come down with something, so I felt really ill. Combine that with traffic on the motorway causing the trip to take 6 hours, and this was not an enjoyable experience at all. You can tell by my voice in this vlog how much I was struggling to record it, so bear with me on this one. So after the 6-mile trip to the City Ground lured me into a false sense of security, I made the 200-mile journey down south to the American Express Stadium, home of Brighton and Hove Albion. After making 4 consecutive trips down to Exeter, I should have been used to these long journeys, but delays on the M25 meant the expected 4-hour journey took closer to 6, so it was a good job we travelled down the night before. Nottingham Forest are having an incredible season. They're sitting in 3rd place in the Premier League with a bit of a gap opening up between them and the rest of the teams challenging for the Champions League places. If you went back a year and told a Forest fan that they'd be ahead of Man City and Chelsea in the league and still in the FA Cup at the end of March, would they have believed you? Probably not. This is a fantastic turnaround for Nuno Santo. Brighton are having a decent season themselves though, and due to the top half of the table being so close, they're also in with a chance of qualifying for the Champions League. They're in 7th place and 7 points behind Forest in the league, so this one should be an interesting game. Forest demolished Brighton the last time these teams met, thrashing them 7-0 at the City Ground, but Fabian Hürzeler has turned things around since then, and they've won 6 out of their 7 games since. The two teams drew 2-2 in the league here back in September, so if performances in the league are anything to go by, Forest would have to go into this one as favourites, though I could sense that Brighton would be after revenge. As a Hereford fan, I have a bit of history with Brighton, though their posh new Amex Stadium was a new one for me. I was there back in 1997 when Robbie Reinold scored probably the most important goal in Brighton's history, the equaliser at Edgar Street that kept them in the Football League and sent my Hereford United down. But just look at them now, this is a lovely stadium. Brighton's former stadium, or American Express Stadium as it's known, opened back in 2011, with the club newly promoted to the Championship, and this club have been on the way up since. It was a lovely day on the south coast on Saturday, so after some lunch and a bit of a walk around the town centre, we went down to the train station. It's a short train ride to the Amex from Brighton Station, and I'd been advised to travel early by one of my friends, which was really good advice.
I got to the ground just under 3 hours before kick-off and the station was already starting to get busy. I can imagine how ramped those trains are as you approach the kick-off. I like getting to football grounds early so I can soak up the atmosphere and get some food without having to queue or rush around, but the place was already buzzing when I arrived. They've opened up a new fan zone outside the stadium this week, so this was their first time using it, and everything was friendly and well organised. There was nobody checking tickets or excluding away fans, everyone was welcome, and it was a great vibe. With the main club shop under development, there's a temporary one on site, and to say it's only temporary, it's still huge. And it took me roughly 5 minutes to find a Hereford reference, which was in this Brighton history book, which I just had to have, as well as this scarf. I never thought I'd ever see myself buying Brighton merchandise. The club shop is filled with friendly and really helpful staff. In fact, Brighton and Hove Albion seems like an incredibly organised club. Even with the stadium and surrounding areas busy, I hardly had to queue for food or toilets. The staff just manage everything so well. So after checking out the club shop, I had a walk around the ground to the away end to find my seat. I got inside the stadium about an hour before kick-off, and look how good this view is. I was only 3 rows back from the pitch, close enough for the sprinklers to give me a shower. This is such a nice stadium, but it should be. It cost the club nearly £100 million. I fancied a bit of a snack, so I got myself a piglet sausage roll, which was huge, and definitely more like a meal than a snack. And for £6, I couldn't really complain at all. As the stadium started to fill, you could tell the Forest fans were feeling confident. They were lively, and a really positive atmosphere was beginning to build while the two teams were warming up. Forest were missing top scorer Chris Wood, who'd been injured on international duty, but otherwise they had a near full-strength squad to choose from, while Brighton had a few doubts, but no major concerns, so it looked like we were going to see both teams going for it, with a semi-final at Wembley Stadium up for grabs. The two teams came out to a bit of a firework display, and I think the Forest fans enjoyed that. Listen to that noise as we approach the kick-off. The Forest fans taunted Brighton throughout, constantly reminding them of the recent thrashing at the City ground. And there's Rooney. You can see Lineker and Walcott there too, with the famous old trophy. Could one of these teams be lifting it this season? In the first half, Nottingham Forest were by far the better team, though it was Brighton who came closest to scoring with a couple of efforts from outside the area, but it was 0-0 at half-time. And Nottingham Forest take Mull of Kintyre everywhere, don't they? The second half was more of the same. There weren't that many chances and Forest again probably edged it. And midway through the second half, Nottingham Forest were awarded a penalty for this foul on Elliot Anderson by Kaoru Mitoma. Or were they? After a relatively short check, VAR overturned the referee's decision, so no penalty for Forest. Did VAR get that right, or should that have been a penalty? I'm not so sure. It looked pretty soft to me, but have a look for yourself. So, with no more major second half drama, we go to extra time for the third successive round. The final score: Brighton 0, Nottingham Forest 0. Brighton seemed to wake up in extra time, but still no goals in that first half. Surely I wasn't going to have to sit through penalties once again. In the second half of extra time, Brighton seemed to really step it up a gear and had by far the better chances. What a save this is from Sells. And what a huge part he's played in Forest's success this season. He's easily been one of the best goalkeepers in the country. But with just a couple of minutes remaining in extra time, Brighton thought they'd won it. But this time, it's Forest who are saved by VAR. So, for the third consecutive round, we go to penalties. Final score after extra time: Brighton 0, Nottingham Forest 0. Nottingham Forest are just so good from the penalty spot, and after scoring all 9 in their previous shootouts, they would have to be confident. Though the mood around me seemed to be that their luck was about to run out. Could they do it again though? So Nottingham Forest do it again, and it was local lad Ryan Yates who scored the winning penalty, then ran the whole length of the pitch to celebrate with the Forest fans. Look how close I was to the celebrations, which carried on for ages after the game. Saturday's attendance was 29,930, which is marginally the highest of the journey so far, and once again I have to give man of the match to Forest keeper Matt Sells. How important has he been for them this season, especially in the FA Cup? So it's Nottingham Forest who make it to their first FA Cup semi-final since 1991, but who would they be playing at Wembley Stadium? The draw was made ahead of the last quarter-final.
Number 4. And first out are Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup semi-finals for the 13th time.
They are going to be playing against number 3.
Nottingham Forest will get the winners of Bournemouth or Manchester City.
And Manchester City won 2-1 at Bournemouth, so it'll be Nottingham Forest against Manchester City at Wembley next month. And how close am I to finishing this journey now? And to top it off, that was the most boring game on the journey too. The quarter-final really wasn't the greatest experience. I didn't want to have to sit through extra time and penalties when I was already struggling, but that's exactly what happened. But Forest win a third consecutive penalty shootout to reach the semi-finals for the first time since 1991. This season, I've been to a game in every single round of the FA Cup. I started at Hucknall Town's RM Stadium back in August, and I've followed the winning teams along the same path ever since. During that time, I've witnessed Bottisford Town's best ever run in the competition as they reached the second qualifying round for the first time in their history. Then I saw Exeter City reach the fourth round for the first time in 44 years, and Exeter's run was ended at the hands of Nottingham Forest, who have put together a run of their own, reaching their first FA Cup semi-final since 1991. And with the team flying so high in the league, could they go one better? So on Sunday, I made my first of 2 trips to Wembley Stadium for the semi-final match between Nottingham Forest and Manchester City. And after Crystal Palace stunned Aston Villa in Saturday's first semi-final, both teams would have seen that as a huge incentive to reach the final, having both beaten Palace in the league. Though Crystal Palace have demonstrated that despite their poor league form, they aren't to be underestimated. And what a performance that was. Manchester City would have to go into this semi-final as favourites, but this one was just so difficult to call. City beat Forest 3-0 at the Etihad back in December, but Forest won this fixture 1-0 at the City ground last month, so this game really could go either way. But one thing is for sure, the Forest fans were feeling confident. And it was such a lovely day on Sunday with the sun shining, and there's the famous Wembley Arch. As we'd stayed over the night before, we had plenty of time to go for some lunch and have a good walk around the stadium before kick-off. In fact, we arrived roughly 5 hours before kick-off, and Wembley Way was already starting to fill up with football fans. Forest fans did seem to outnumber the City fans on Sunday, and maybe the novelty has worn off for the citizens since they're at Wembley nearly every season. Who knows? There's so much to do around Wembley Stadium with so many bars and restaurants nearby, but of course with it being such a big occasion, everything was busy. We managed to get a table at Wagamama in the designer outlet nearby before heading over to the Wembley Club shop, which was surprisingly quiet.
Being Welsh, there was no chance of me buying anything with the England logo on it, but I do have to say those shirts are top quality, and this is a brilliant match programme. This wasn't my first trip to Wembley Stadium, in fact it was my fourth. I watched Hereford lose to Morpeth Town in the FA Vars final back in 2016, when they were heavy favourites to win. Then I watched Hereford lose to Hornchurch in the FA Trophy final in 2021, once again with us being favourites to win. And my last trip here was for the League Two playoff final where Port Vale beat Mansfield Town in 2022. But I've never seen it this busy before. Nottingham Forest fans had turned Wembley Way into a sea of red shirts, and they were making themselves known. We did try to get into the Nottingham Forest fan zone, but it was so busy with a huge queue outside, so we didn't get a chance to go in. Out of all the games I've been to on the road to Wembley journey so far, this was by far the most challenging to get tickets for. But luckily I have a friend who was able to sort out my ticket in the Forest end, but I was only able to get my wife one in the City end, so this was going to be interesting. We bumped into Forest legend Mark Crossley on the way to finding our seats, and I managed to get a selfie with him before going into the stadium. And we got inside Wembley Stadium not long after the gates opened, and the concourse is huge. They managed the crowds really well too, as queues for the bar or toilets seem to go down really quickly, which is always a bonus. And check out this view. Just like the last two rounds, I was sitting so close to the pitch. My wife, on the other hand, was about as far back as she could have been, at the opposite end of the stadium, but that view still looks decent. I don't think there are any bad seats at Wembley, really. It's such a fantastic stadium. Look at that sea of red in the Forest end. It was such a great atmosphere to be sat amongst the Forest fans. With the kickoff approaching, both teams' anthems were played, starting with Manchester City's Blue Moon. And, well, no words, just listen to this noise. This is just brilliant. These Forest fans were determined to get behind their team and enjoy themselves no matter what the result. As Roy Keane and Ian Wright walked past to get to their commentary positions, listen to that reception Roy Keane got from the Forest fans. Then out came the two teams for episode 13 of my Road to Wembley journey. I can't believe I've made it this far. Hucknall town feels like a lifetime ago now. I'm not sure this really needs to be said, but Forest are in red and City are in blue. Wembley Stadium can overwhelm even the best teams regardless of form, and the key, especially from a Forest point of view, was surely not to concede early. But it took Rico Lewis less than 2 minutes to put Manchester City in front with a neat finish from the edge of the penalty area. What a dreadful start for Forest, but now it's game on. Last season, Nottingham Forest might have collapsed under the pressure going a goal down to City, but this version of Forest against this season's City felt very different, like as if they were going to pull themselves back into the game. City knocked the ball around well, as they always do, and totally controlled most of the first half, but Forest did start to come into the game just a little before half-time.
We're not blaming you, we're not blaming you. We're not having to go at you.
Nottingham Forest 0, Manchester City 1 at half-time, and with Anthony Elanga coming on at the break, the Forest fans were feeling positive. But within seconds of the restart, how did substitute Anthony Elanga miss this? You have to forgive him, as I believe that was his first touch, but he still had to score there. Unfortunately, my filming wasn't any more accurate than that effort. Look at how much quality Manchester City have on their bench alone. It felt somewhat surreal to have Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden just casually warming up so close by.
Quality on there.
And City's quality showed minutes after that Elanga scare. The ever-reliable Matt Sells pulled off 2 brilliant saves. And Forest were a little fortunate to get away with what could so easily have been a penalty for handball. Before Josko Gvardiol made it 2-0 from the resulting corner. Surely that was game over now? Not a chance. Forest weren't giving this up. They needed an instant response, and from that point things got a little bit frantic.
City goal scorer number 24, Hucknall.
Morgan Gibbs-White was close to what would probably have been the best goal of his career when this effort hit the crossbar. Apologies for my dodgy filming again. I don't know if it was the sunglasses or whether I was trying to film without watching through my phone, but some of these clips are just awful. And how did Forest not score here? Surely it wasn't going to be Forest's day.
Great ball.
That is a great ball.
Well, Anthony, skid him. Don't take you down there.
Careful, your man.
Good ball.
Kevin De Bruyne. And sadly it wasn't Nottingham Forest's day. The final score, Nottingham Forest 0, Manchester City 2, in an entertaining game that really could have gone either way. City probably were the best team overall, but Forest had easily the better chances, and I really don't know how they didn't score. The overall attendance was low for a Wembley semi-final, 72,976, which is still easily the highest attendance on my journey, but look at all those empty seats. I found it quite difficult to pick a man of the match from that. Officially it was Mateo Kovacic, but it could easily have gone to Rico Lewis or Forest keeper Matt Sells, who made some fantastic saves. Nottingham Forest have done themselves proud this season, and reaching the FA Cup semi-final is another achievement to be proud of. It wasn't to be on the day, but I guarantee the fans enjoyed the experience. And not only did they sing throughout, but they stayed to applaud their team after the final whistle. And so I have to say goodbye to Nottingham Forest. It's Manchester City who I'll be returning to Wembley with in a few weeks' time when they take on Crystal Palace in the FA Cup final for the final chapter of this incredible FA Cup journey. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you're enjoying this series so far, and I just want to give a special mention to my friend Richard, who's been fantastic in helping to sort my tickets for some of these later rounds, as well as getting Matt Sells to sign my Forest shirt. I love it. So after a dominant display, Manchester City make it to their third consecutive FA Cup final, as they go back to Wembley to play Crystal Palace. What an incredible journey this is, and it ended with Crystal Palace writing their own history. Here's the last vlog on the journey, and check out that atmosphere. So this is it. After 13 rounds at 9 different grounds and nearly 4,000 miles covered, I've finally reached the final of the FA Cup. My journey started just down the road at my local side, Hucknall Town, where they were beaten 3-2 by Bottisford Town in a thrilling opening game. I then watched Bottisford Town make history by reaching the second qualifying round for the first time ever, before eventually losing 2-0 down in Worcestershire. I briefly followed Bromsgrove Sporting, Chelmsford City and Barnet before the competition proper took me down to Devon, where I went on another journey with Exeter City, who made it to the fourth round for the first time in 44 years. Exeter's run was ended by Premier League side Nottingham Forest after giving them a huge scare and taking them all the way to a penalty shootout. Penalties became Forest's specialty in the Cup as they went on to beat Ipswich and Brighton in the same way as they reached the FA Cup semi-finals for the first time since 1991. Last month I followed Nottingham Forest to Wembley, but their dream was ended by Manchester City after they somehow couldn't put the ball in the net.
So, after watching 13 matches and adopting 7 different clubs, I followed my 8th and final club, Manchester City, to their 3rd successive FA Cup final, where they would play Crystal Palace. 7-time winners Manchester City would have to go into this game as favourites, though they are enduring probably the worst season of Pep Guardiola's reign, while Crystal Palace would be looking to win their first ever major trophy. I couldn't wait for this one. You can see both teams' route to the final flashing up on screen currently. One scored a lot of goals, while the other had been solid at the back throughout. Could Palace keep out City's relentless attack? As we were at Wembley for the previous round, we knew what to expect, and as always, we got to the stadium early. We were there 5 hours before kickoff, and as you can see in these videos, it was already starting to get busy. We checked out both fan zones. Had a look around the club shop. Then bought a programme and this half and half scarf to mark the occasion. While we were walking around the stadium, I got chatting to a friendly City fan who commented that he'd only been to Wembley 16 times previously with Manchester City. That's the sort of stat that most football fans can only dream of. In the semi-final, I'd been right down at the front and only a couple of rows back, whereas for this one, we were way up high in the Manchester City end. I just love that walkout at Wembley. It's impressive and somewhat overwhelming at the same time. Just check out this view.
I love it live.
For Manchester City, coming to Wembley is just part of the routine, while for Crystal Palace it's a novelty. So as expected, most of the noise came from the Palace fans. Look at how much quality City have in their team. It's insane. It was just unreal to be in amongst those flags and this atmosphere. And fair play to whoever organised these displays.
So out came the two teams for the FA Cup final.
Crystal Palace and Manchester City!
Being Welsh with an Italian wife, we have to admit we didn't sing the national anthem, but how can you not appreciate this? And after Bottisford Town kicked off the journey at the RM Stadium 9 months ago, Crystal Palace get the 2025 FA Cup final underway. Listen to that noise. As expected, Manchester City controlled possession in the early part of the game, but Crystal Palace held firm. Go on. Totally against the run of play, with a lightning-fast breakaway, Crystal Palace took the lead through Eberechi Eze. And I have to say, I called it. This Manchester City side are beatable, and if Eberechi Eze gets the same chance as Elanga did in the last round, I'd be confident of him putting it away. Just look at what that meant to the Palace fans. Manchester City continued to dominate the game after going behind. And then controversy. Erling Haaland ran onto a through pass, then Palace goalkeeper Dean Henderson appeared to handle the ball outside the area. VAR checked and didn't think this was a foul, but what do you think?
Should Henderson have been sent off for this? Go on. Then City were awarded a penalty after another long VAR check. It looked as though Haaland was going to take the penalty, but at the last minute he gave the ball to Omar Marmoush. What a moment for Dean Henderson and Palace. So after a very frustrating 45 minutes for City, the half-time score was Crystal Palace 1, Manchester City 0. And surely City would score in the second half. They usually do after all.
The half-time score in the 2025 Emirates FA Cup final. Crystal Palace 1, Manchester City 0. Manchester City!
Hit it. After review.
Go on! Go on! Go on! Go on.
Yeah, I can see why they haven't done this one before.
Seconds.
Oh my god, they're still going to be like walking.
But somehow, despite an additional 10 minutes being played, Palace held on.
The winners of the Emirates FA Cup, Crystal Palace!
was party mode for Crystal Palace and their fans, who have been brilliant throughout, and they thoroughly deserve this.
The winners of the 2025 Emirates FA Cup, Crystal
What a moment for Crystal Palace, and we got to witness the first major trophy in Crystal Palace history.
That's it. After 14 rounds, starting at Hucknall Town, Crystal Palace have won the FA Cup.
The total attendance was 84,163, and man of the match for me just has to be Palace goalkeeper Dean Henderson, who was solid throughout, despite his incident in the first half. Congratulations to the 2025 FA Cup winners Crystal Palace. I'm so glad I chose this year to attempt my FA Cup Road to Wembley challenge, and I've really enjoyed everything about it. Well, except for the stress of trying to get tickets for the final, that is. With Nottingham Forest losing in the semi-finals, I effectively lost access to tickets through my friend who works at Forest, but thankfully an old friend managed to help me out. Sir Gareth, who I've known for the best part of 20 years, managed to get hold of tickets for the final through the Herefordshire FA, which was hugely appreciated. Gareth runs Hereford-based club Taurus FC, who he set up back in 2007, and I was actually one of the founding members all those years ago.
Taurus now has 15 teams across various different age groups and provides a grassroots football experience over a number of different platforms for thousands of local children. Please go and give them a follow on Facebook and Twitter. They're a fantastic club and Gareth has dedicated so much of his time developing them over the years. Thank you to Gareth, Richard, Andy and Exeter City for ensuring that I had tickets through the later rounds of the tournament, and to every club involved that was part of my journey. I can't believe I've completed my challenge. I have to also give a special mention to Bottisford Town, who were voted Road to Wembley Team of the Tournament by the viewers on this channel, and I have to say it was much deserved. I've got so many more videos to make about this series, so it isn't going to end there. I'll be putting all of my FA Cup vlogs together into a compilation, as well as making a goal of the tournament video, so I'm excited to share all of my ideas with you. Thank you to everyone who joined me on this journey, and what challenges do you want to see me do next? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you at Nottingham Forest City Ground for the conclusion of the Premier League at the weekend.
The winners of the Emirates FA Cup, Crystal Palace!
Road to Wembley, completed it, mate.
So Eberechi Eze's first half goal was enough to give Crystal Palace their first ever major silverware. What an incredible achievement, and I was there to see it. Thank you to all the clubs who were involved in my journey. I followed 8 different clubs to 9 different stadiums and witnessed 41 goals, with Exeter City's Josh McGuinness finishing as my journey's top scorer with 6. I travelled a total of 3,582 miles, with the 4 trips down to Exeter making up a huge chunk of that. Congratulations once again to Crystal Palace, but also a special mention to 3 clubs who reached a special milestone along the way. Nottingham Forest for reaching the semi-finals for the first time in 34 years, despite not actually winning in normal time on my journey. Exeter City, who reached the 4th round for the first time in 44 years, and Bottisford Town, who made the 2nd qualifying round for the first time ever. I'll be making a bit of a summary video over the next few days. I'm going to highlight the best and worst parts on the journey, as well as sharing my thoughts. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you've enjoyed this video, and listen out for my new non-league series. I'll be announcing it very soon. Lastly, I wasn't the only person who took on the FA Cup Road to Wembley challenge this season. Phil and his 2 sons started their journey back in August at Cornard United, and they even saw my Hereford get knocked out along the way. You can see Phil's journey on screen as this video closes, and what a fantastic achievement. Thanks for watching.
Crazy that they won it.